Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're bringing you another intense and emotional chapter in the love story of Diêp, a strong, kind-hearted young woman from humble beginnings, and James, a powerful CEO who's willing to risk everything to protect the ones he loves. In the previous episode, after countless misunderstandings and heartbreaks, James and Diêp received a shocking call from Tung, once a close friend, then seemingly a traitor who shattered their trust. But during a quiet meeting at a small cafe, a truth was revealed that changed everything. Tung is actually an undercover cop. All of his cold actions, the harsh words, and the betrayal they believed in were all part of a facade. He had been living in the shadows, earning the trust of John, the man behind countless dark schemes, in order to uncover his weaknesses and bring him to justice. In that moment, time seemed to stand still. Three people, three hearts scarred by pain, sat together in silence, remorse, and understanding. Apologies were exchanged. Misunderstandings were forgiven. But at the same time, a bigger question began to surface. Can James and Tung truly join forces, put the past behind them, and face the even greater power hiding behind John? Will their plan succeed? Can justice triumph over evil when behind John lurks an even darker, more dangerous force? And will James be strong enough to protect Diêp and their daughter as the real storm begins to gather? All of that will begin to unfold in today's video, a journey filled with tension, emotion, and unexpected twists. If you love this story, don't forget to hit like, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell so you won't miss a single moment of James and Diêp's emotional, dramatic love story. John, a man consumed by burning envy, someone who had never known the limits of cruelty, would stop at nothing to destroy James. In his eyes, James was no longer just a business rival, but a thorn in his side that had festered for years. James had everything John had always craved: true love, a happy family, and the respect of those around him. The more John witnessed James's happiness, the more it drove him mad. His jealousy had long since passed the stage of quiet resentment. It had flared into a deep, blazing hatred, pushing him to ruin everything James held dear. After his plan to have Diêp and her daughter kidnapped by imposters posing as police failed, John didn't retreat. That failure didn't shake him. It only fueled his obsession. He knew that if he wanted to truly bring James to his knees, it wasn't enough to attack his career. He had to strike at James's most vulnerable point: his family. And so, a new scheme was born. More dangerous, more ruthless. No more kidnappings, no more vague threats. This time, John wanted to erase the very symbol of James's happiness: the small house on the outskirts of town where James, Diêp, and their daughter had found rare peace in the midst of chaos. For John, that home represented everything he despised, and so it had to burn. Then, on a scorching afternoon, with the sun blazing down on an empty road, John's men silently moved in. No warning, no noise, just fire kindled behind the house. At first, only wisps of smoke curled into the sky, but soon they erupted into an inferno. The wind fanned the flames, feeding them until they swallowed everything. Every brick, every window frame, every corner where laughter once echoed. Fortunately, that day, James had taken Diêp and their daughter out. A routine health check for the little girl. Had they stayed home, they would have been caught in the heart of that merciless fire. What remained of their home was nothing but charred wood and ash, a blackened skeleton of memories lost to flame. James stood before the smoldering ruins, fists clenched so tightly his hands trembled. Diêp held their daughter close, her eyes red but dry, as though the pain had gone too deep for tears. John had crossed a line, and James knew this was no longer a battle he could afford to fight with caution. Blood had been threatened. Fire had come too close to his heart, and he would not allow anyone to take anything more from the people he loved. The sky gradually darkened, with the golden glow of sunset fading behind the trees. In the car, Diêp sat in the back seat, gently cradling their sleeping daughter, while James drove in silence, his hands firmly gripping the steering wheel. Diêp looked up at James with a soft smile. "Do you think she'll like the new flower pots I planted in the backyard?" James gave a faint smile, eyes still fixed on the road. "Absolutely. She's just like you, loves small, gentle things." But before they could fully savor that fragile peace, a thick column of black smoke rose on the distant horizon, right in the direction of their small home. James gripped the wheel tighter. "Diêp, do you see that?" Diêp turned her head, her face draining of color. "That's where our house is." He slammed his foot on the gas. The car shot forward like an arrow, every turn sharp, every heartbeat pounding like a drum in their chests. The car screeched to a halt on the side of the road. James and Diêp jumped out and froze in horror. Their house, once a safe haven, the keeper of their fondest memories, was now a roaring inferno. The walls had collapsed, the roof completely engulfed in flames. Smoke billowed into the night sky, thick and choking. The air reeked of scorched wood and destruction. James dropped to his knees, hands on the ground, a guttural scream tearing from his throat. "No!" Diêp clutched their daughter tightly, her whole body trembling. Tears streamed silently down her face. No sobs, just silent devastation, as if the pain was too deep for words. "Why our house? Why?" she whispered to no one, her voice breaking. James suddenly lunged toward the house, desperate to salvage anything, but firefighters who had just arrived held him back. "You can't go in. It's too dangerous." He shoved their arms aside, eyes blazing red. "That's my home. Everything is in there. There's no one inside. Thankfully, no one was home," a firefighter said quickly. James froze in place. No lives lost, but everything else was gone. Every photo, every carefully chosen piece of furniture Diêp had picked out with love. The fragile sense of peace they had just begun to rebuild, now reduced to ash. James sat down, the orange flames reflecting in his eyes. Diêp quietly joined him, settling beside him and gently taking his hand. Their little girl remained asleep in her arms, blissfully unaware that the home she knew was now nothing more than a heap of smoldering rubble. James whispered, his voice ragged and low, "I swear, I won't let this happen again. I will find who did this, no matter what it takes." Diêp said nothing. She just held his hand tighter. In her eyes now was more than just pain. It was resolve. Because for love, for family, and for the truth, they would rise from the ashes. After the fire was extinguished, the air still reeked of scorched ashes. The flames were gone, but within James and Diêp, a different fire had just ignited. Not a fire of destruction, but a fire of rage and resolve. James stood silently before the wreckage, His fists clenched so tightly the veins bulged. He no longer cried. He no longer shouted. He was silent, but his eyes, burning red and deep like an abyss, said it all. He was holding back a storm within, and when James turned around, he didn't need to say a word. Everyone could tell. He would not stop until he found the one who dared to destroy his home. Tung approached, also silent. His eyes lingered on James for a long while, as if trying to read something. Then he simply gave a small nod. In that moment, they understood each other. Two men, once friends, once estranged by misunderstandings, now stood united on the same front. No more accusations, no more doubt. Just one goal: uncover the mastermind behind all these crimes. That very night, James and Tung drove to the area around the burned house. Tung, with the instincts of an undercover cop, quickly scanned the scene in a way no ordinary person could. His eyes locked onto the smallest details: strange tire marks pressed into the soil, cigarette butts hastily stomped out, and, most telling, unfamiliar footprints by the back fence, the easiest point of entry. James followed quietly, asking no questions. But now and then, his sharp gaze fell on clues with a calculating precision. Clearly, he wasn't unfamiliar with investigating. He had once run a powerful corporation, faced countless schemers and liars. But this time, he was hunting for something far more personal: the safety of his family. After nearly an hour of searching, they stopped in front of a small house just a few hundred meters away. It was modest, but had a security camera pointed toward the path that led behind Diep's home. Tung knocked, flashing his badge. Fortunately, the homeowner was cooperative. When told about the fire, the man quickly agreed to let them review the footage. Inside a dimly lit room, the screen's glow cast shadows across James and Tung's faces. They watched closely as the footage rewound. And then, it happened. The night before the fire, two men in dark clothing appeared. One stood watch while the other prowled near the fence surrounding Diep's house. They didn't do anything suspicious at first, just observed and jotted down notes. But the next night, just hours before the fire, they returned. This time, one of them was carrying a gas canister. Tung frowned and slowed the footage, frame by frame. The men's faces were hidden under low-brimmed caps, but their movements, their coordination, even the way they walked. Tung knew immediately. These weren't some local thugs. They were professionals. James clenched his jaw, his hand lightly slamming on the desk. Not out of sudden anger, but from the cold certainty building inside him. Behind these two was John. John alone couldn't have pulled this off, James said softly, his voice colder than ever. Tung nodded. Right, this was carefully planned. He's got someone backing him. Or he hired a proper crew, like mafia arsonists. James gave a bitter smile. And he thinks burning down our home will stop us. He's underestimated us. Tung glanced sideways at James. The eyes he saw were no longer those of a businessman. They were the eyes of a man ready to go to war, not for power or pride, but for the woman he loved and their innocent child. Tung spoke low, but with weight. I'll dig deeper, track down who hired these men. James, you should stay with Diep. She needs you now. James stared at the screen again, as if burning the image of the two arsonists into his mind. Then he nodded. Thank you, Tung. And this time, we won't give him a third chance. Will James and Tung be able to uncover the true mastermind behind the arson? Will justice be served, or will darkness continue to hide the truth? The answers await in the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe and follow to stay updated on the gripping twists ahead, where secrets slowly come to light, and the battle for justice is only just beginning.
Sau gần 1 giờ tìm kiếm, họ dừng lại trước căn nhà của một người hàng xóm cách đó vài trăm mét. Căn nhà nhỏ nhưng có gắn camera an ninh hướng dẫn con đường mòn dẫn về phía ngôi nhà của Diệp. Tùng gõ cửa suốt chừng cả ngày. May mắn thay chủ nhà là người tử tế. Khi nghe nói vụ cháy, ông vội vàng đồng ý để họ kiểm tra camera. Trong căn phòng tối, ánh sáng từ màn hình phát ra là thứ duy nhất mọi rõ gương mặt Diêm và Tùng. Họ cùng chăm chú nhìn từng khung hình tua ngược lại theo thời gian, và rồi khắc đó họ xuất hiện. Tối hôm trước vụ cháy, hai người đàn ông mặc đồ tối màu nặng nẽ xuất hiện. Một tên đứng gác, một tên lén lút dạo bước quanh hàng rào nhà Diệp. Họ không làm gì đáng ngờ vào một thời điểm đó, chỉ đứng quan sát ghi chép điều gì đó. Nhưng đến một hôm sau, chỉ vài giờ trước vụ cháy, họ quay lại lần nữa. Lần này trong hai tên mang theo một can xăng.